The southern shore offers no answers. For days, the vast Vanara army has searched through dense forests and deep caves, only to hit a geographical wall. Somewhere across the water, Sita either lives in captivity or she is already gone. That paralyzing unknown grips the entire camp in silence. Then the wind suddenly shifts. A shape streaks out of the distant horizon with the speed of a storm. Hanuman lands as a witness carrying fire. He has breached Lanka, stood in the enemy's gardens, and spoken to Sita. He brings back the absolute proof Rama needed to move. That single piece of information cuts through the paralysis. Rama's grief shifts into direction. The search phase of the campaign is over. The rescue mission starts now. A military force locked by despair cannot fight. A single confirmed fact shatters the psychological barrier, pulling an entire army off the ground and putting it on the offensive. Orders rip through the ranks. The army moves southward as a living forest. Warriors capable of tearing trees from the earth surge behind Rama, a chaotic, wild force bearing down on the coast. But the marching abruptly stops. The tree line ends, colliding with the edge of the world. They face a glittering, merciless wall of water. Rama stares at a divide no normal military force can cross. If you want to see how ancient strategy dismantles impossible bottlenecks like this one, hit the like button and subscribe. Millions of devoted troops mean zero on the wrong side of the water. Geography itself has become the primary enemy. Across that water, the king of Lanka makes a fatal political error. Ravana's brother, Vibhishana, advises him to make peace and return Sita. Insulted by the truth, Ravana chooses his own pride, humiliates his brother, and banishes him from the city. Vibhishana crosses the ocean and descends into the Vanara camp, asking for refuge. The generals immediately draw their weapons. A shape-shifting Rakshasa prince from the enemy royal house is the exact profile of a deadly spy. This logic flowchart illustrates the tactical shift. Standard procedure dictates an enemy defector should be captured or killed to eliminate risk. Rama bypasses this, decreeing that anyone seeking refuge receives absolute protection. That choice yields an overwhelming strategic advantage. Protecting Vibhishana grants an informant who provides the exact layout of Lanka's defenses and troop movements. By weaponizing righteousness over paranoia, Rama fractures the enemy's royal house and harvests their deepest military intelligence without firing a single arrow. But the ocean remains in the way. Attempting to respect the natural order, Rama sits on the shoreline for 3 days, fasting and praying to the sea for a path. In return, he receives only the deafening roar of the waves. Patience runs out. The grieving prince stands, draws his bow, and aims a weapon loaded with enough divine wrath to boil the ocean dry. The water trembles. Samudra, the lord of the ocean, surfaces. He explains that water cannot simply become land without violating the laws of the universe. But he offers a critical structural loophole. The sea will accept the weight of a bridge. Under architect Nala, millions of Vanaras hurl massive boulders and torn trees into the crushing surf to create a causeway. Securing the impossible path requires the terrifying willpower to threaten nature, immediately followed by the logistical genius to build over it. After 5 days of thunderous labor, a road of stone and timber cuts directly through the abyss. The impenetrable barrier is conquered. The entire army floods across the water. Rama marches alongside Vibhishana, who walks toward his treacherous brother, and Hanuman, who watches thousands follow a path he once had to fly alone. As they near the island, the golden towers of Lanka pierce the sky. The enemy finally has a shape, heavily fortified and glittering with stolen wealth. Rama defeated his own paralyzing grief, protected an exiled enemy to secure vital intelligence, and forced the ocean to bear an impossible road. He stripped away Ravana's absolute defense of geographic isolation, deciding the war's outcome before the army even touched the beach. The moral foundation is laid, but the physical siege of Lanka is up next. To watch the Golden Fortress fall, like this video and subscribe for the next episode. Morning breaks over Mount Suvela. and the immense, restless Vanara army finally reaches its destination. After an impossible ocean crossing, they stand face to face with Lanka. The golden walls, high gates, and palace towers are fully visible. The sea is behind them. High above the northern gate, Ravana steps into full view. He stands in the open, fully armored and crowned, daring the attacking army to look at him. He is a direct, highly visible challenge to the commanders below. The sheer numbers of the Vanara army press against the mountain, carrying a long history of grievances. Yet, the opening phase of this siege is defined by tense restraint. Two massive forces wait in a quiet, fragile standoff, watching to see who breaks first. Sugriva, the Vanara king, sees the man who stole Sita and snaps. He abandons his position, bypassing the tactical plan, and launches himself across the open sky directly toward the royal balcony. He hits the terrace with explosive force. A brutal brawl erupts on the palace walls. In the chaos, Sugriva grabs Ravana's jeweled crown and rips it into the dust, delivering a public blow to the king's pride before leaping back to safety. Back on the mountain, the Vanaras roar in approval. Rama releases his ally and speaks with the weight of command. Courage without counsel can destroy the very cause it wants to serve. He makes it clear that had Sugriva fallen, the army would have staggered before the first day of war. The quiet restraint of the morning is gone. The physical line has been crossed, and Ravana has suffered a massive public humiliation in front of both armies. The possibility of a peaceful resolution is rapidly shrinking. Rama makes one final attempt to avoid slaughter. He sends Prince Angada into the heart of the royal court as a formal, unbowed envoy. Angada delivers a blunt ultimatum: return Sita and the city survives. He positions Rama's patience as a final warning, making it clear that this offer is born of restraint, not fear. Ravana rejects the warning entirely. Reacting based on absolute hubris, he violates the oldest laws of diplomacy, ordering his guards to seize the envoy in heavy chains. Angada allows them to grab him for a brief second, then violently breaks their hold. He shatters the palace roof with his escape, launching himself back to the besieging army. That broken roof marks the end of negotiations. Absolute pride has shattered the diplomatic process, locking both sides into a single remaining path. The siege must become a war. If you are enjoying this breakdown of tactical myths, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into cinematic history. The immediate transition to hostilities is explosive. The Vanara ranks roar Rama's name, a sound immediately answered by the deep rhythmic beating of drums and conches from the fortress walls. On the left, Lanka relies on orthodox machinery and archery lines. On the right, the Vanaras answer with raw environmental warfare, wielding boulders as artillery. Ravana tests this environmental force by deploying 3 of his orthodox commanders in piecemeal waves: Dhumraksha, Vajradhakstra, and Akampana. Hanuman and Angada step forward to intercept them. Using their chaotic, unpredictable physical power, the Vanara warriors systematically dismantle the incoming forces and strike down all 3 commanders. The air inside Lanka shifts. The consecutive deaths of these 3 military pillars replace the court's earlier arrogant confidence with a very real, creeping panic. Conventional tactics are failing. To stop the bleeding, Ravana plays his highest conventional card, Prahasta, the commander-in-chief, who brings the full weight of Lanka's disciplined iron phalanx with him. Prahasta immediately validates his rank. His tactical brilliance and disciplined volleys of arrows push the chaotic Vanara ranks backward, restoring order to the Rakshasa lines. The Vanara chief Nila steps out from the retreating ranks to intercept him. The collision pits the raw, unarmored authority of nature directly against polished military command. The entire siege hinges on this single duel. If Lanka's greatest general falls here, the city's impenetrable orthodox shield is permanently broken. The duel escalates into brutal close-quarters combat. Nila shatters Prahasta's chariot, stripping away his mobility and distance, forcing the commander-in-chief into a bloody hand-to-hand brawl in the dirt. Nila leverages the environment itself. He hoists a massive boulder and hurls it forward, crushing Prahasta and instantly killing Lanka's top general. A terrifying vacuum opens on the battlefield. The disciplined Rakshasa lines go completely silent. Stripped of their leader, The soldiers break their formations and retreat in horror behind the golden walls. By systematically destroying Ravana's conventional military might, Ravana forces the king's hand. The war of ordinary armies is over. To survive, Ravana must descend into the shadows of the city and awaken his monstrous brother, Kumbhakarna. A dictator rarely survives on his own personal strength. His power lies in the safety nets and loyal followers he hides behind. We are breaking down exactly how Lanka's ultimate weapons were destroyed, so make sure to like and subscribe as we map out the rest of the epic. Ravana deployed his physical shield by awakening his brother Kumbhakarna. He bypassed standard infantry maneuvers, instead releasing a walking catastrophe designed to break the enemy front line. Kumbhakarna acknowledged that Ravana was ethically wrong for starting this war, yet he marched to the battlefield anyway, driven by a blood loyalty that outweighed his own judgment. He crashed into the Vanara army, crushing warriors underfoot and scattering entire battalions in a storm of dust and debris. Rama realized he could not match that kind of moving earthquake with force. He relied on cold, calculated archery, launching measured precision strikes to sever the giant's limbs and cut him down. With Kumbhakarna's massive frame falling, Ravana's first architectural defense, the wall of physical dominance, was stripped away. Ravana immediately escalated, sending out his royal son Atikaya. The prince entered the field protected by divine armor that was practically impenetrable. This armor operated like a void. Every arrow and spear the Vanaras threw simply lost momentum and fell away, as the divine boon swallowed and nullified every brute force attack. Lakshmana saw that raw aggression was ineffective. He recognized the armor was a divine shelter, so he invoked a higher celestial weapon to break the mystery of the protection. When that armor shattered, it proved that even a divine boon cannot protect a corrupt cause indefinitely. Atikaya finally fell, and Ravana's second layer of defense vanished. That left Indrajit. He discarded conventional battlefield rules, shifting the conflict toward invisible, psychological warfare that struck from the shadows. To break his enemy's spirit, Indrajit dragged out a magical illusion of Sita and staged her execution directly in front of Hanuman. The tactic worked. Believing their purpose was lost, the Vanara army reeled in despair, and the news temporarily stalls Rama's will to continue the fight. But Vibhishana immediately saw through the theater. Knowing his nephew's methods, he analyzed the scene and exposed the execution as a calculated deception. The dark illusion served as a smokescreen. Indrajit needed time to travel to the grove of Nikumbila and complete a secret ritual that would make him unstoppable. The war was no longer a battle of armies. Now it was a desperate race against time to stop that ritual before the psychological shield became permanent. Guided by Vibhishana, Lakshmana burst into the smoke-choked grove of Nikumbila, interrupting the dark ritual just in time. Standing beside the sacrificial fires, Indrajit lashed out at his uncle, condemning Vibhishana as a traitor to his own family. Vibhishana argued that shared blood does not make a dharma holy. He stood firm, insisting that moral duty must outweigh family ties. Forced into the light, Indrajit collided with Lakshmana in a furious archery duel, fought with intense speed and no room for illusion. Lakshmana's steady purpose overwhelmed the Master of Shadows. With a single decisive strike, Lanka's Master of Illusions was killed, and the deception ended. Back in the throne room, news of Indrajit's death hit King Ravana like a heavy blow. The final beam holding up his reign had snapped. Look at the defensive architecture now. The physical giant, the divine armor, and the Master of Illusions have dissolved, leaving the central crown suddenly exposed. Ravana sank into a mix of grief and blind rage as the reality set in. The architectural defenses he relied on for years had vanished. True defeat happens long before a king dies. It arrives the moment the lies and proxies he uses to protect himself are burned away. Beyond the smoke of battle, the war was now agonizingly simple. Rama and Ravana finally had no other choice but to face each other. If you want to see how this final confrontation plays out, make sure to like and subscribe for the next chapter of our deep dive analysis. The news of Indrajit's death hit Lanka like a physical tremor. For a city that defined itself by its invincibility, the loss of its greatest warrior shattered the fundamental belief that they could survive this war. Inside the palace, the silence was absolute. Ravana bypassed the stage of mourning entirely, his grief instantly weaponized into a focused rage. He left the safety of his throne and the protection of his guards, stepping onto the field to become the fire that would consume everything in its path. Ravana's opening move was cold and calculated. He ignored Rama, choosing instead to hurl the night-infused Shakti weapon directly at Lakshmana, aiming for his heart. The impact paralyzed the battlefield. Rama, the figure responsible for the fate of the cosmos, collapsed. He was no longer a general or a god. He was a man reeling from the terror of losing his brother. In an instant, the cosmic struggle for order narrowed down to a single human life, hanging by a thread in the dust. The physician Sushena offered a bleak assessment. Lakshmana's only hope lay in a specific healing herb found in the northern mountains, thousands of miles away from the heat of the battle. The timeline was merciless. The herbs had to be retrieved and administered before Lakshmana's final labored breaths ceased. Every second that passed was a drop of life leaving his body. Hanuman stepped forward to bridge the distance. As he prepared to launch himself across the continent, he converted the sheer scale of his devotion into kinetic force. Hanuman is about to attempt a feat that defies the laws of physics. While he races north, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel to help us keep these epic stories alive. Now, back to the fight for Lakshmana's life. True devotion acts when logic fails. It is the willingness to outrun death itself when hope has vanished for everyone else. Hanuman's flight north was a desperate race against the cosmic clock. He tore through the sky, flying backward over the geography of his own journey, the ocean, the forests, and the memories of the entire exile. When he reached the peak, the mountain itself seemed to resist him. The magical herbs hid in the shadows, shimmering and disappearing, refusing to be identified as the stars shifted and time ran out. Hanuman solved the puzzle with brute force. Since the herb would not be found, he anchored his hands into the earth and ripped the entire peak from the mountain range to carry it back south. On the battlefield, the wind changed. The sheer presence of the mountain's life-giving energy began to push back the poison of the Shakti weapon, allowing Lakshmana to draw a full breath. Ravana attempted to break Rama's spirit by targeting his brother, but he underestimated the world-altering mass of pure devotion. The final duel began with a stark visual imbalance. Ravana stood in a massive war chariot, looking down at Rama on the ground. To restore the balance of dharma, the god sent Indra's celestial chariot to serve as Rama's platform. Ravana's defense was unique. Severing a head triggered outer rings to multiply. Attacking his pride just caused it to regenerate. Engaging his ego was a trap. To end the war, Rama sent a single piercing strike straight through the regenerating heads into his core. Rama took up the Brahmastra. This was the final weapon, designed to bypass the distractions of Ravana's power and strike the central fortress of his heart. Defeating a tyrant requires more than just fighting his many faces. You must strike the physical and philosophical core of his power. As Ravana fell, the roaring battlefield went silent. Rama immediately ordered the fighting to stop and commanded that royal funeral rites be performed for his enemy, proving that his battle was with Adharma, not the man himself. Then came the most agonizing moment of the epic. When Sita finally approached, Rama spoke with the cold, distant voice of a king under the scrutiny of his subjects. He questioned her virtue in the presence of his entire army. Sita's response was devastating. She refused to argue against false appearances and instead demanded the Agni Pariksha, choosing to carry her truth directly into a wall of flame. The fire refused to touch her. Agni himself emerged from the pyre, bearing Sita unharmed and radiant. The flames became the ultimate, unbribable witness to her purity. The cost of righteousness is absolute vulnerability. True moral order demands that truth survive both the cruelty of an enemy and the harsh judgment of allies. The victors boarded the Pushpaka Vimana, the celestial chariot that rose above the ruins of Lanka, to begin the long flight back to Ayodhya. From the sky, the geography of the war became a map of their trauma. They looked down at the bridge, the ocean, and the forests, tracing the physical scars of their journey home. One final crisis remained. In Ayodhya, Prince Bharatha was prepared to commit suicide if Rama did not return the exact moment his exile ended. Hanuman was sent ahead of the chariot to deliver the news that saved a brother's life. The end of a war is rarely the beginning of peace. It is a race to ensure that lingering trauma doesn't claim one last victim. Ayodhya received its king with a wall of light and music. The brothers reunited, and the wooden sandals that had sat on the throne for 14 years were finally set aside for the man who had earned them. This was the birth of Rama Rajya. It was a moral order painstakingly rebuilt from the ashes of war, proving that a kingdom's strength is measured by its commitment to dharma. But this peace was purchased with heavy tolls: Lakshmana's blood in the dust, dignity offered to a dead enemy, and Sita's walk through the fire. Toppling a tyrant is only the first step. The agonizing, necessary work of sacrifice is what builds a truly righteous world.